if you don't ask the question why, then you can never even define the problem. Right. The reason why Big Basket is doing extremely well is that we ask the question why and answered it very thoughtfully. Why does a customer shop with Big Basket? And the answer was that a customer wanted to avoid a visit to the store. And if the customer wanted to avoid a visit to the store, what is it that we should do for this customer that who wants to avoid a visit to the store?
So hi all, welcome to Engati CX. Today we have the pleasure of welcoming Hari to our interview series. I would like to begin with just a quick intro of Engati. Engati is the world's leading multilingual no-code chatbot platform, available across 14 channels with 25,000 bots created across 186 countries in every domain and use case. Engati has also been recognized as a top platform by INC.com, TechWorld, CIO, and many others. We run the Engati blog, video channel, and the Engati CX podcast, receiving upwards of 300,000 visitors annually. And now for our guest, Hari, aka the Startup HR Guy, is the co-author of the book Saying No to Jugaad, The Making of Big Basket. He is Big Basket's current head of HR. This IITian and IIM graduate has spent years at Tata Steel, first as an engineer and then in HR. Hari has been a part of the management team at multiple startups, scale-ups, and helped shape 4 successful exits in different industries. He believes that in startups, jargons don't count because one has to execute, perform, and make things happen in real time. He is extremely passionate about solving problems and building organizations for scale through clear and uncluttered thinking and relentless execution. So hi Hari, we are really thrilled to have you on Engati.
Thank you, Drishti. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so before we begin with the interview, here's a quick announcement. We have something for all of you, so stick around till the end of the interview. So beginning with the first question that I have for you is, can you just brief about your journey and how you got involved with Daksh and how that was a turning point for you?
So, Drishti, I can break up my career into 2 large buckets. The first one is, with Tata Steel, I spent 14 years, largely working as a mechanical engineer. Engineering was always my passion. And the reason why I did an MBA was not to get a foothold outside of engineering, but to get a more holistic perspective of how organizations operate. And I spent 14 years with Tata Steel, and the last 3 years was in HR. My move to HR was more by accident. At that point of time, post-liberalization, the country had opened up the economy and several foreign companies had access to Indian markets.
Yeah.
And CIS countries were dumping steel at prices that were below our costs. And we had to do something very dramatic at Tata Steel. 70,000 people produced 3.5 million tons. And 700 people produced 3.5 million tons in an American steel plant like Nucor or a South Korean steel plant.
Yes.
So we had to right size. We had to get younger people, who were competent into positions of importance. We had to get away with the concept of lifelong employment. All of those, culture change we had to. So we got in McKinsey to help us think through some of these, and I was part of the core team that worked with McKinsey from Tata Steel on this project. This was largely a human capital project. I found it pretty exciting. And, after that, at some point, I just felt that Tata Steel was a little too large for me, a little too bureaucratic, a little too slow. I was relatively more agile, very entrepreneurial, a bit of a rule breaker, and I felt I should, find a place that will suit my style. And I just happened to accidentally come across Daksh. So Daksh was my first startup. For me, moving from Tata Steel to Daksh was like moving from an oil tanker to a fighter jet. So that was the, order of magnitude difference in terms of agility that I experienced. And Daksh was my entry into the startup world. And the last 18 years have been with a string of startups. And I have been the head of HR for all the 5 startups that I've worked for Daksh, and then followed up with Virtusa, which was an IT services product company headquartered at Boston. Of the global head of HR there as well. Yeah. Worked for a global management team. A significant part of the team was based out of the US and Europe. Was with Amba Research. After that, the company was acquired by Moody's. Virtusa, we went public listed on NASDAQ. Daksh was acquired by IBM. After Amba Research was acquired by Moody's, I moved to Taxi for Sure. Taxi for Sure, after a spate of rapid growth, so merged with Ola, and then currently with Big Basket. So last 18 years, exciting years with startups. And I've had an opportunity to do several things in the last 5 years. So the first 13 years in my startup journey, I really looked inwards at the company that I worked for, helped figure out, how to scale the organization, find a successful exit. Last 5 years, I've also, looked outwards, shared some of my learnings with, the rest of the world, rest of the startup ecosystem, and have been, involved with the ecosystem in a very big way. I've mentored at three, accelerators, Techstars, Numa, as well as Silicon Road. I'm associated with two VC funds, growth stage VC fund, which is Fundamentum, and Arkham, which is an early stage VC fund. Also associated with the educational institutions, at multiple levels in different capacities. At some places, I actually put pen to paper and teach. I teach problem solving at Harappa. I've been teaching, funding and a few other programs at Your Story Education, and have also been associated with Avantika University as a member of the academic council, shaping the curriculum, and at a corporate advisory level at the Chandigarh University. So I'm doing fun things. I've been writing multiple books. Exciting years, last 5 years. I have been exploring multiple things, and I've enjoyed my life to the hilt.
Yeah. I remember recalling that in Taxi for sure. I think that was like the best time you had. So can you share something from that experience on what was so great about working in Taxi for sure?
Yeah. So Taxi for sure, I think, was a great place to work. I spent about 13 or 14 months there. It was, when I joined the company, we were a relatively small companies, operating out of 3 or 4 cities. And in less than 13 months, we had scaled to 45 cities. I was there in office every day by 8 a.m. sharp, and rarely left office before, midnight, 1 a.m., I would say. And I didn't find it, tough at all, because when you enjoy the work that you're doing, hours really don't matter. So I think the culture was good. It was an amazing culture, fun, as well at the same time, very strong performance orientation, very collaborative, and yet very competitive. So I think it was a great organization, great culture, great set of founders, great work environment. And I think we grew very rapidly. It was just that there was a black swan event in December 2014 when an Uber driver raped a female passenger in Delhi. And that changed the whole game for funding in the taxi aggregation space. And we had to merge with Ola. But it was an exciting journey, the best phase, 12 months in my life.
That's great. I think you have had a variety of I can say job functions in your entire life. I mean, going from mechanical engineering to HR is a huge change in your career. So that's really exciting.
Yes.
So moving on to the second question that we have is that the funding cycle seems to be dying, and high growth startups are laying off people in the thousands. So what is your perspective of business established with sound business practices versus the feel that startups today are bereft of any sense of business fundamentals?
Right. So I would let me just say, that the funding cycle really mirrors the eternal cycle of hope and despair. Cycle of hope and despair is very, very deeply ingrained, embedded into the human psyche. And I think the funding cycle just mirrors that. And the top of the funding cycle is really when, fantasy is abandoned by reason. That's at the top of the cycle. And the positive side of this is that it encourages entrepreneurs to pursue some audacious ideas. It gives them a lot of courage to do that. And the negative side of this is that in the process, it creates a lot of impossible monsters and irrational exuberance. And I think you saw this cycle in 2016-17 or 15-16 at its peak, when SoftBank would be funding several startups, would give hundreds of millions of dollars to businesses which were not very sound, to businesses which had developed very bad habits, to businesses that were not sustainable. I think that was at the peak of the cycle. And I would say that's when fantasy is abandoned by reason. And I would say the bottom of any funding cycle is when fear is abandoned by reason. That's when everything becomes very pessimistic. Even great ideas don't get funded. People put everything on hold. I think the really great investors are those who recognize this cycle and who are aware of the negative sentiments that each phase of the cycle, the top as well as the bottom, create or generate, and are wary of those and invest wisely. I think that's about investing wisely. Having said that, I would say that those startups in their good times that did not display responsible behavior, that tended to burn a lot of money just to acquire customers and market shares in an unsustainable way, those are the very same startups that are now laying off hundreds and thousands of people. And I think they are laying off people in very large numbers because suddenly they are realizing that many of the businesses are not sustainable.
Yeah.
I think a downside in any cycle like this we are seeing actually introduces a lot of reality check and induces responsible behavior.
Yeah.
The good thing is that many of these startups, whether it is Swiggy or whether it is Zomato or whether it's Uber or Ola, which are laying off people, are suddenly realizing that it is important to build a very sustainable business. I'll give you an example of Big Basket. So Big Basket, even when the cycle was good, times were good, we did things very responsibly. We felt that you need to build it in a very sustainable way. A business that cannot generate profit is not going to be able to sustain itself in the long term, right? So we were very, very focused on both top line as well as bottom line. We didn't go after acquiring customers just for the sake of acquiring customers. We wanted to acquire them profitably.
Yes.
And therefore, the business, was built in a very sustainable. Just to give you an example, if you look at Entracker reports, you will find that there are some startups which are doing a revenue of 70 lakhs and actually burning 150 crores. So you can imagine, revenue of 150 crores and you're losing 70 lakhs is okay.
Yeah.
But a revenue of 70 lakhs and loss of 150 crores is just unbelievable, right? But then that has become the norm. You can see startup after startup, especially the well-funded ones, the same pattern repeating. Whereas for Big Basket, it was very different. We were burning a very limited amount of money, but generating $1 billion in revenue. And now when the crisis has hit, we have not laid off anybody. Not a single person has been laid off. We haven't done any kind of a salary cut because we built it very sustainably. So I would say that, it's important to develop good habits in good times. Good times normally induce you to do bad things and develop bad habits. So I would say it's important to do the right things even in good times, so that in the bad times you will be well off.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I agree with you that, there are startups who are getting mammoths of funding, and it is not like allocated for a particular resource or a particular project, but and then the revenue doesn't turn out well, and there's no balance basically. So yeah, and in these tough times when they are not getting that funding, they have to lay off people, which is just just not right. Yeah. So moving on to technologies and startups. So how do you think AI and tech can be the game changer?
So I don't know whether they can be game changers or not. All I would say is that there has been a lot of hype about AI.
Yeah.
And let me just say that AI can be broadly classified into three buckets. The first bucket is where areas where AI is genuine and making rapid progress. So, for example, face recognition, image recognition, diagnosis from scans, medical diagnosis from scans, speech to text, reverse image, search. All of these are areas where AI is making genuine and rapid progress.
Yes.
I think areas that are partially imperfect at this point of time, but improving are like, for example, detection of spam, detection of hate speech, copyright violations, having a conversational AI, bots, for example. These are areas that are imperfect but improving continuously.
Right.
The last area of AI, the last bucket, is areas that are fundamentally dubious, like predicting, for example, job success. What kind of a person will succeed in the job? Predicting, the predilection to attrite, whether a person is going to stay with you or is going to leave your company. Whether a criminal is going to, after being in prison, is he going to revert back to criminal activities or will become a good citizen? Predicting all of that, or the future of children, I think is completely flawed, fundamentally dubious. It can never ever get better. It's not that when the better tools are available, these problems will be solved. I believe that these problems fundamentally are impossible to solve. And I can explain that, why in a more detailed chat at some other point of time. But if you use the principles of chaos theory, you will easily figure out these are unsolvable problems. So I think AI is claiming, or at least some individuals are claiming that AI can solve this. For example, at some point of time, Ginny Rometty, who was the CEO of IBM, claimed that they had an AI tool that worked on their supercomputer Watson that could predict with a 95% accuracy whether an employee would, stay or leave. I think that is completely a false claim because it's impossible to do that. And therefore, I would say that AI is able to, make an impact in the first two areas that I predicted. First, I think making very rapid progress. Second area also, I think imperfect as of now, but I think with better tools and with time, it will solve a lot of problems.
So, I feel right now that the startups can focus on, it's like with the first category that you mentioned, that people can use those tools for prediction analysis, but not on human prediction, but the data prediction analysis that they can do, right? So that is a field where AI has shown wonderful results, and that can bring a lot of success to startups.
Yeah.
So do you think conversational AI can be critical as a customer support tool in the e-commerce industry?
Yes, I think my own sense is that conversational AI falls into the second bucket, which is that it is imperfect as of now, but with time, it will keep getting better. And I think it carrying on difficult conversations, complex conversations may be difficult for a bot. But I think a lot of customers are not serious about carrying difficult or complex conversation. It's mostly about simple questions, standard questions that need responses. And I think conversational AI can handle that. It's getting better by the day, and my sense is that it will keep on improving, and e-commerce companies can benefit by using conversational AI bots in customer interactions.
Yeah. Like it can definitely serve as a first point of contact. Like
correct. That's correct.
To the bot, coming to the website, I can just ask if this product is available or not.
Correct.
Tell me without me going and searching in those categories, and that's
correct.
A really good user experience that I can get.
Correct. That's correct.
So what advice would you give the millennials and the Gen Z who live and breathe startup culture and want to catapult growth for business as well as themselves?
I don't have advice for anybody as such. It's not fair to give advice. All I would say is that, what has helped me, I can say that. I don't know whether it will help with the millennials or Gen Z. I think I have always been curious. I have always tried to ask the question why at every point of time on any domain, in any subject. And irrespective of what I was doing, I tried to get to the root cause, tried to go deeper into things, even whether it was in engineering or even today when I'm looking at some problem that I'm doing at home, teaching my daughter mechanical engineering, or, in the office solving a problem that's related to, how to improve efficiencies in the distribution centers. I think getting to the root cause by asking the question why, because if you don't ask the question why, then you can never even define the problem. Right. The reason why Big Basket is doing extremely well is that we asked the question why and answered it very thoughtfully. Why does a customer shop with Big Basket? And the answer was that a customer wanted to avoid a visit to the store. And if the customer wanted to avoid a visit to the store, what is it that we should do for this customer that who wants to avoid a visit to the store? For example, if he or she orders 25 items and we can supply 23, then the customer has to go to the store for the remaining 2. And the customer might as well pick up those 23 also from the store. Right. So we figured out that if we answer the question why thoughtfully, in every situation, I think you can define the problem better and get along in life better. So be curious, keep asking the question why. Second is take risks, try to get into your areas of discomfort and explore new things. You don't know what you will like or what you may not like. I never had an idea about HR. I said, yes, let me do it. I never had an idea about, a BPO company. I understood steel very well. I understood, the large oil refineries, the large equipment in a steel plant, steel melting shops, the high temperatures, dust and grime. But I thought, what is a BPO company? People sitting in air-conditioned offices and answering, customer queries of Citibank and Sprint and Vodafone. Customers sitting in the US, and these guys are taking calls sitting in Delhi. Nina is speaking like a Nancy. How does this even work? So I took the chance, explored that, and I found that interesting. And that's what I've done with my career. And the third advice, if you will, is associate with interesting people. Associate with people who demonstrate integrity, who want to do, who are values driven in their life. Associate with them and don't care about other things like compensation, career progression, etc. I think all those things will take care of themselves. So associate with interesting people. If you get an opportunity to interact, work with interesting people, take it. So that's what I would advise. So here are three things that I would advise.
That is actually great advice. I think we as at least I will tell my experience that I'm one from Gen Z, and sometimes I hesitate to take risks, but I think now at my age, if I can explore more and more, then I'll be able to decide on what I want to do.
Yes,
that would definitely help. So thank you so much, Hari, for giving us your time. I think your insights are valuable, and the advice that you gave, I think the audience will really adhere to it.
Thank you so much, Drishti. It was such a pleasure doing this with you.
Yeah. So if you're stuck around for this long, we are so excited to announce that our ebook, The Evolution of Customer Experience, is out and available to download. Check the link in the description below for more details. We'll be back with a new episode with a brand new expert soon, so stay tuned and we'll see you around for the next one. Thank you so much, Hari.
Thank you, Drishti. Thanks.